You open the gates of hell, Walter. You think I'm the devil?
So, in the Power universe, the aim of the game is money and power, and as is described in Force, Power, Powder, and Respect. And we've seen positions of power switch from characters to characters, like Ghost to Kanan, to Milan, to Jason Michich, to even Simon Stern, who was someone who could even be considered the most powerful person in power, in his own way. But the same could be said about devils in the world of power, where the mantle is passed from certain characters at different stages. Now, albeit Raquel and Walter Flynn are two characters from two different power worlds and time frames, Raquel was still someone who I described as a devil in a red dress at the end of Raising Kanan Season 1, and there's a reason why I called her the devil.
Your shit is my shit. For example, your recording studio. Yeah, it's my recording studio.
But Walter Flynn describing himself as the devil in episode 7 of Force made me think about the similarities between the two parents because of their controlling and manipulative ways. Because as much as they love their kids, it can be said both Raquel and Walter Flynn just see their kids as merely as extensions of themselves. And as we run through this video, you'll see why. So in this video, we're going to run through an analysis of the similarities between the two devils and of their controlling ways, how it could be justified in some ways, but how it could also ultimately be the downfall for both of them, similar to how Ghost's controlling ways was eventually his downfall, because he was someone who was standing in the way of Tariq's future, similar to how Breeze was standing in the way of Ghost, and we all know what happened to both of them. Now in Raising Kanan, as the first season unfolded, it was clear that even though Raquel loved Kanan, she never wanted to relinquish this power and control over him, because she could have easily sent him to grow up and live with his grandma, away from the streets, but she never did, and it's because she wanted to keep him close by, especially after he killed Buck 20, only she could protect him, and where she quickly accepted Kanan for who he wanted to be, telling him that this bullet is something that he's going to be running from for the rest of his life. She realized if Kanan was going to go down this path, then it's better that he does so under her control. So we saw her putting him in the stash house with Scrappy, watching over him, because this is how she started when DEFCON was in charge. But trying to control someone like Kanan was always going to result in him rebelling, because he thought he had what it took to enter the game. And then we saw him learning from Marvin, and at one point, even setting up the drive-by to sell his product, which was his idea. But he quickly realized the consequences of this game, especially when bodies started to drop in the street because of the product that he made. And then we saw Raquel having to clean up his mess, but he was someone who was rebelling against Raquel because she was trying to control the position that he was playing. And it's a very similar situation to what we're seeing play out in Power Book 4 Force. Walter Flynn is someone who's mapped out the futures for both Vic and Claudia, with Vic being the heir to his throne, and Claude doing the books for the Flynn family organization. But as they're getting older and much wiser, they want a taste of this power themselves, and now we're seeing them rebel against Walter Flynn, and both fighting for the position as the head of the Flynn family organization, similar to how Kanan was rebelling against Raquel. And so far, we've seen Vic Flynn making his move with Tommy and the CBI. But when Tommy was cut out from their deal, we saw Claudia forming a partnership with Tommy with her new drug Dahlia, and it is thanks to Walter Flynn and Raquel's controlling ways as to why we're seeing their kids rebel against their parents, because the more they try and control their kids, the more they're pushing them away. But regardless of them rebelling and going against their parents, we saw Walter Flynn protecting his son Vic when he realized that he made a move against the Serbs, which I will be looking at from a different perspective by the way, when I come to discussing manipulation by both Raquel and Walter Flynn. But he was someone who was protecting his son and cleaning up his mess when he ruthlessly killed 3 of the Serbs, sending a message to Merkovich. And again, we saw Raquel doing something similar for Kanan, when we saw her protecting Kanan and keeping him close after he killed Buck 20, and cleaning up his mess when he dropped bodies in the streets because of his bad product. But instead of killing those who were coming after Kanan, she had to approach this a little different. So we saw her giving up more territory to Unique, and this ended up in a war and a chess game between Raquel and Unique, a war which she ultimately won in Season 1, but with a bit of a twist, because Detective Howard is still alive, which definitely wasn't a part of her plans. But no doubt we're gonna see a war between Walter Flynn and Merkovich and the Serbs, because they will be back, but who wins, only time will tell. And this war will definitely involve a lot more blood. But let's talk about manipulation when it comes to Raquel and Walter Flynn, because I mentioned how we're going to look at different perspectives when it comes to this drive-by shootout involving Vic and Gloria, because Walter Flynn is someone who's not just controlling when it comes to business, he's also controlling Vic when it comes to his love life. And it could be argued, because his bribe and offer wasn't accepted by Gloria, he could have took matters into his own hands with his drive-by and scaring Gloria off instead, which seemed to have worked for the time being anyway. But did we see something similar from Raquel in raising Kanan? Because Kanan was someone who was completely love-struck when it came to Davina, and we saw him making a crucial mistake when he came out of the stash house, revealing the location to Davina, which she gave up to Unique. And Raquel knew how much Kanan was distracted by Davina, because even she mentioned how he was walking around all droopy-eyed and love-struck, and she saw why. So similar to Walter Flynn, could Raquel have had Patricia killed, making it look like an overdose, who was Davina's mom? Because it really wouldn't surprise me because of how manipulative she was, knowing that Davina was a huge distraction to Kanan, which she knew Kanan couldn't afford to have. So this is just a different perspective to love interests when it comes to Walter Flynn and Raquel's manipulation, and could show how they were playing a deeper game of chess when it comes to controlling their kids beyond their business and the game, but also their love lives. But moving on, where Kanan is young and naive and was someone who's making mistake after mistake, Claudia and Vic are a lot more experienced in the boardroom and in the game, and it shows with the moves that they've been making. But it won't stop Walter Flynn from tearing down whatever Claudia and Vic are trying to build for themselves. Because just like Raquel loves having control, as the end of Raising Kanan Season 1 showed us, Walter Flynn is someone who doesn't like relinquishing this power either. Even though he knows he's dying from lung cancer, it's always going to be his way, because that's the way he likes it, and that's the way Island wants it. And we're going to see Walter Flynn telling Claudia exactly this: whatever she's into, he's going to crush it. And Raquel was someone who was similar in her controlling nature when she made her intentions clear when it came to Lulu, by not having him follow his dream, and even telling him that his record label is now her record label. So Raquel and Walter Flynn are two very controlling parents when it comes to their family and the game, because they both like running shit their way, and you could say they're the sun, and everybody else just exists in their orbit. But is this why the fate of Raquel and Walter Flynn is already sealed? And it brings me back around to how I mentioned Breeze was in the way of Ghost's future, and how Ghost was in the way of Tariq's future. The same could be said about how Walter Flynn and Raquel, being controlling and manipulative in the way of their kids' futures, could be the reason why they eventually could be taken off the board. Now of course, there is a plot hole for Raquel's character to be alive in the current timeline, because Kanan mentioned that he went to go see his moms in Season 2 of Power, but he could have also meant her grave, so only time will tell what the fate of Raquel is. But at some point, if Walter Flynn doesn't change his devilish ways, then he will have to be taken out, and I really wouldn't be surprised if it was either of his kids, because we've seen this father and son killing theme across the Power universe, and most recently, even Monet having Kane think that he was going to take out Lorenzo. But linking this to Force, Walter Flynn really is underestimating his daughter when it comes to having a gun in her hand. But this image that 4 Stars released shows it might be coming soon, because we're going to see Walter, Claudia and Vic all with a gun in hand. So with that being said, consider this part 1 to the devil of Walter Flynn and Raquel Thomas, because both of their stories are unfinished, so we will be revisiting this at some point in the future with both characters. So drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section on Walter and Raquel's devilish ways, and who do you think is the bigger devil? Drop all your thoughts down below, and of course if you're new to the channel and you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Power Book 4 Force and Power Universe related. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.